I opened a book expecting ancient history, but what I found was a personal letter written directly to my soul. I wasn't just reading the words were looking at me, telling me it was time to wake up.
When I first opened it, I felt like I was reading a personal letter sent directly to me from God. It didn't feel like an ancient text or a distant history. It felt like a conversation aimed at my soul. My name is Gregory Vadum. I was born in Brussels, Belgium, into a secular family, which is quite common in the French-speaking parts of my country. Though my family was far from religious, they wanted me to have the best education, so they sent me to a Catholic boarding school when I was 8 years old. I grew up surrounded by the beautiful architecture of an old abbey where a saint was buried, but for most of my youth I remained a typical materialistic Belgian kid. We studied religion in an open-minded way, more as philosophy or ethics than as a living faith, because our society had moved away from practicing religion long ago. Looking back, there was one moment in my childhood that stands out. I must have been 6 or 7 years old, shopping with my mother and grandmother in an area of Brussels filled with Turkish and Moroccan shops. I saw a large framed picture of the Kaaba in a storefront window. I remember pointing at it and saying, "Mom, I want that for my room." She told me I couldn't have it because it belonged to their culture and religion, and people would think it was strange if I bought it. I didn't know why, but I felt a strange magnetic pull toward that image even then. As a teenager, I was mostly interested in skateboarding and my friends. However, I was always curious about different ideas. I had a friend whose family was Algerian. They were secular and didn't really practice, but they had a French translation of the Quran in their home. One day, I asked if I could borrow it just to see what it was about. That book was a shock to my system. From the very first page, I realized this was different from anything else I had ever read. It wasn't talking about someone else, it was talking to me. It felt like a voice was speaking directly out of the pages, telling me to wake up, to look at the world around me, and to recognize the clear evidence of a creator. It was a wake-up call for a 15-year-old kid who had never given much thought to anything beyond the material world. I went back to my friend's family and told them, "This book is incredible. I think I'm going to become a Muslim." I hadn't even met a practicing Muslim yet, but the book had already convinced me. I didn't care that I was alone in this. I got a book on how to pray and spent the next 2 years practicing Islam in secret at my boarding school. My friends, the typical skater kids, thought it was just a phase. They laughed and asked what I was doing, but they were good people and eventually accepted it. My family also thought it was a teenage passion that would fade with time. In Europe, the idea of religious law is very difficult for people to accept. They couldn't understand why I would stop eating pork or drinking alcohol. They saw these rules as things to rebel against, not as a way to live. Fasting was easy for me in the beginning because the days were short in November, but later I experienced the 21-hour fasts of the northern summers. That was a challenge, but the real effort was finding a place to pray 5 times a day while living in a strict boarding school. I had to be creative, finding quiet corners after classes to fulfill my duty. Over time, people saw that I wasn't trying to force my views on anyone. I simply shared my perspective on how I saw the world. Interestingly, when my sister's daughter reached an age where she started asking deep questions about death, my sister told her, "I don't have the answers, but your uncle does. Go talk to him." It showed me that even those who don't believe recognize that Islam provides a foundation that secularism cannot. Since 9/11 and the subsequent attacks in Europe, Islamophobia has become much more visible and conscious, but there is a flip side to that coin. Because Islam is in the news so much, people who were never interested before are now asking, what is this religion really about? It has opened a door for those seeking the truth. Before Islam, I was an idealist who didn't know where to direct my energy. Today, my purpose is clear. I want to understand humanity better and use the vast resources of the Islamic tradition to make sense of how the world works. My journey wasn't about changing who I am, it was about finally understanding where I belong.